first 40-minute turn of Blenheim done, or first 2 turns, 40 minutes. What has happened? Well, you know, the Allies have approached a little bit. You see crossing the river here, infantry coming across here being, I don't know, kind of oddly fighting the Cav. It just feels really weird to have infantry coming across trying to attack with Cav trying to defend. I've gone over that, that's weird. This sector of the board, the way the way the wings work, it just doesn't do much. This is sort of a reserve wing ready to come in case things kind of break open and the infantry pushes the Cav back far enough, which it probably will, just seeing what we're doing. And then we got another line of Cav behind that before we hit infantry here. So you can see a couple of routes, not a hell of a lot. Then over here, let's swing all the way to the other flank. The infantry again has just moved up into contact, not really fighting. Now they're hitting Cav here again, but over here they're hitting infantry. And then the one place where we're seeing a Cav versus Cav fight happen. And look what I forgot to do. I unflipped all of that stuff, but I didn't deal with the stuff on the board. I got to remove the artillery hits, and I got to unflip the artillery pieces. How about that? Missing dancing opens up a lot of time for me, basically. Here I am, I don't know what it is, like maybe 11 a.m., something like that. I napped for a little bit. Never able to sleep any kind of reasonable amounts at a time. And let's start the new turn with the artillery. Part of why it gives me a lot more time. I mean, first of all, Friday night, earlier this morning, whatever, I'm home. I didn't go out all night. I played my raid and whatever. It's like a regular day. And then today, Saturday, I'm not exhausted. I'm not sleeping. And recently, even Sunday has been like, I've been having trouble getting much. I get teeny bit in. So yeah, I mean, it really kind of, it's sort of a 3-day hit. Now, I missed playing a lot on Friday, yesterday, because I thought I was going to go dancing. Time in this battle, I think the Allies have more artillery total. It's hard to tell, but at this point, because the French lost a couple, I'm pretty sure they lost. So I let them fire first, and they did actual counter battery fire, which is kind of cool. It was effective in this case, in which case, hey, that French gun is silenced. It doesn't mean much. That gun didn't have a hell of a lot to do. It would probably plug the unit ahead of it and not have much effect either. And we had a couple of hits. French lost another gun due to, ammo shortages, but we got a few little hits. Again, I don't think the artillery is going to have that big an effect on things. It's a minor modifier, right? In general. And, some slowing to movement or halting movement in some cases. Onto the chart. Again, I don't think there's much I want to do here. The lines are all pretty full, so it's like, what can I really do? And maybe I'm thinking more towards the end, the end of Neerwinden more than how it was at the beginning. But so far it feels like there was more opportunity to shift units around to do stuff of value. Some of it is, there's parts of this battlefield like this wing here that just feel like they're useless. But also it just feels very, very tight as well with all the forests and everything. There's not a lot of room. Also, I don't know, this infantry versus cav combo, is kind of delaying the game from developing as much, perhaps. One of the places with that is, you know, there's one wing I want to put the leader forward. Churchill, I want over here in the Unterglau wing. But he's just facing Cav. And again, it doesn't do me any good to put the leader up there. It just gives him a chance of getting killed, which is fine, but not really what I'm aiming for. The only other wing where I have a lot of leaders is this G wing. And thought I had one where a lot of allied leaders. What wing does Eugene have? Oh, he's the G wing, but it's just a bunch of zeros under that. Oh wait, one of these is a 1 on the other side. What the fuck? Again, misprints galore. Who knows what it's supposed to be? It's gonna be fucking annoying. But yeah, they really fucked up a handful of counters in this. And, you know, it's one thing to get rules mess ups, but when you start getting counters messed up, and this isn't the reverse is wrong from the other side. Now, you could actually read this a couple of ways, though. One might be that this guy, and maybe I'll just do this, is a 0 when he's on this side, which means when you're trying to make the big differences in terms of who moves where, he counts as a 0. So maybe it's intentional, and he counts as a 1 once he's already done his commitment of brigades or transfers or anything like that, and therefore he's good in combat, and he's good at making units change what they're doing. Of course, what that's going to get in the way of, or what's not going to work well there, is that when if I choose not to flip the counters just to make things easier, because like right now, I don't think I want to do a damn thing with any of these. You know, I think I just want to skip this stage, like I did last turn, to avoid flip and unflip issues. I flipped a couple of them, and then I'm like, yeah, you know, I just don't think anybody wants to do a damn thing. All the wings are in good shape. The front lines, are they in good shape? I don't know. Maybe I want to switch an infantry in up here. What would that do? I don't know. I feel really stupid having the cav up in the front there, but I have a fair amount of cav in the back as well. Oh, I've also set it up so that I've got like all the cav in the back. It's in this area that felt like it's more cav-like. There's more room to maneuver and whatnot, but it doesn't really do me a fuckload of good. And now the infantry had to be in the rear line. This was all pre-programmed, the entire setup. Unlike the setup at Neerwinden, where it was kind of like, well, and the reason for that is we don't know much about what the actual deployment was there, whereas we really know the deployment here. And there's no sort of optional, more flexible deployment, which, again, I make the argument that a more flexible deployment would actually make a lot of sense towards making this game a more competitively interesting thing. Because as it stands, you don't have a lot of choices. You know, you're just kind of watching the mechanics play the game once you have your setup in place, until wings start falling apart and you have room, because it's just so packed full of units. But yeah, I think screw it, I'm not going to do anything there, and I'm just going to go to the brigade activation. Actually, I think that Neerwinden is a more interesting game simply because, or scenario, with the rules as written, simply because you have flexibility with your deployment. Down to like, hey, I don't know if these dragoons were mounted or not in the battle. So they give you counters to give you the options on them. Here you have almost nothing of that nature. You have, oh, here's an extra artillery that I don't know why it's here. You have like 3 dragoon units and they're part of a cav command. So it's like, yeah, what am I? Oh, no. They're this down here. Yeah. So those could have been, wait, are they infantry? No, they're mounted. See, this is where I really have problems. Because the one thing that looks particularly different is the dismounted dragoons. And they really don't look like infantry. They look much more like cav squadrons set aside. Now that may be how they deployed as opposed to the regular line infantry, which deployed in lines. All right, so screw it, I'm gonna go to brigade activation, and that means we take a look at how many are in charge on each side, and wow, we're doing stuff on both sides. So I've got 4 in charge on one side and 4 in charge on the other. Woohoo! I think that comes down to a die roll, as opposed to, say, leadership coming into play. Where do we find this? We find it somewhere. Oh, here's what I was looking for. The priority of activation is to become compliant with the command display, then brigade integrity, and finally order compliance. That's what I was looking for. Whoa, okay. So the way that's worded, this is the rule I was looking for that I couldn't find and discarded before, and said, oh, charge orders take priority, and if you're in charge order, you just keep going forward as long as you face your brigade integrity. But that brigade integrity has to do with, see the way that's worded isn't that the brigade has to be together. It's if some units are not adjacent when the brigade is activated. Not adjacent to what? Other units of the brigade is the way I've read it. So yeah, 2 units would still charge because brigade integrity has nothing to do with the whole brigade being together. It just has to do with the buddy system. Okay, so it still works the way I was doing it, but this was the rule that I was looking for. But this isn't what I'm looking for. When a brigade is activated, this is not what I'm looking for. The sequence in which brigades are activated is determined by their order. I'm looking for where it tells me this. Yeah, it's determined by their order. Where the fuck is it? It's somewhere. Maybe it's way back here in the sequence of play. There we go. Right. Brigade activation phase. All under charge go, then yeah. So this is where it is, but it doesn't tell me. Player with the most goes first, or both players have the same, and the player with the higher rated wing commander that has a brigade with charge. Okay. It is by leadership. So my wing commanders, the French are 0s. The Allies have a 2 and a 1. Now, obviously, the Allies have to go first. But I don't believe Eugen has to issue his. See, the way it's worded here is the player with the higher rated WC that has a brigade with charge orders goes first, but it doesn't say anything about having to select one of his charge units. So I believe I could select one of these, and even if this was a 0 and maybe one of these was a 1 or something, I could still select from over here. So like the wing command doesn't force things. I see things problematic about this, which is I'm not sure it's necessarily an advantage for a unit under charge. Like, I'm not sure it's your advantage as a leader for you to have to go first, right? Like, it's not clearly a disadvantage, but in general what I've found is the person who gets to delay making his choices has an advantage. So again, you know, like I did the change from the brigade activations from the way the rules are written, which is the person with the higher command rating has to make the first choice. Well, that's a clear disadvantage. I can't think of any reason why you would want to go first. So the better leader has to make his intentions known with at least one wing before the worst leader, and then he's going to be ahead. He's going to have to make a decision ahead all the time, so you can just cancel out and go to the other wings. Well, in this case, it's a little bit more complicated because sometimes it may be important to get your unit moving before the other unit. But again, why is this wing commander affecting this? I don't know. You know, maybe it's not written correctly. Maybe it's not intended to be that way. Maybe it's intended to be he has to go first. But if that's the case, boy, that's kind of weird too, isn't it? Like that's forcing him to commit in a way. Anyway, the Allies have to go first, and screw it, we'll just let them. Just a side of these rules. So, first of all, the way the rules are written and the amount of errata that is obviously errata, like the amount of errors that are obviously necessary to be corrected and problems that are baked into the game, bring me to having a little bit less certainty about how much I believe that other things that seem absolutely clear, like this, like the army commander having to go first, stuff like that, it makes me more and more reluctant to believe what the rules actually say. Once you start having fuck-ups in any quantity, it's like, yeah, you know, this isn't just like a minor ambiguity or something. There's big problems with these rules. But beyond that, it may be what's intended. There may be, like, there's clearer things that are going to be errata. There's things like this that maybe are going to get corrected or whatever. But then there's a bunch of things that I think are intended that I'm just not sure I agree with, right? And I'm just kind of like, it just doesn't feel like it got hammered out enough. And I'm not going to blame it too much because it is an innovative and new system. It is very, very different. And it may be that there's no way to write the rules so that they always work, you know? And we're talking about stuff like where I was talking about the flank exposure and that the game would be better represented by something like by stacking within a hex, having different facing within the hex to express that flank exposure and what it actually means. And that would actually affect a lot of things, though. It's like, it's clear that what's there doesn't really express what would have happened and what did happen. But it's not clear to me that the kind of fixes that I'm proposing definitely solve everything. Although if they do, and I think they do in that case, if they do, you wouldn't have to have the stupid map distortion issue. I may have fucked up and destroyed some allied units or some units. I don't know if they were allied. Do I have an allied? So I've got an allied route. Oh, they're on the board. They're on there. That's why. I was like, why aren't there things bagged for them? They had losses. I may have removed units because of this bad wording here. So I read this. So if infantry has initial value, it's expended and the cav unit is disordered. If already disordered, the cav unit is routed and retreats. The infantry doesn't advance, but then if the cav unit is unable to retreat, see, now this is fucked up. If already disordered, the cav unit is routed and retreats 1 hex. I guess that's different from the 2 hex retreat that I actually did, which might have saved this transfer. I don't know. This is just so fucking badly worded because you're able to attack without having an initial volley. The initial volley is fired, the unit is disordered. This feels like it's the subset to that. But I think Cav is supposed to retreat no matter what. And I'm trying to remember, because I feel like I resolved this and it was all working fine in Nearwind, and now, boy, is this not making sense to me. And I'm awake. I'm in good shape right now compared to often. What's this? 5 minus 2 equal 3. What the fuck is this shit? Oh, this is Brigade morale checks. Okay. But yeah, I feel like you're supposed to be able to chase them, but the only case that would rout them, right, is if they're already disordered and unable to retreat. And I don't think these, well, one of these losses was an infantry, right? I think. I don't know what caused this. That's the thing. But these guys, I'm just not at all convinced that I had 2 Cav completely trapped. And what I was looking at was, I want to hit those Cav now before they get a chance to reform. With my infantry, but I'm not really sure. Like here I look, these are both on the wings, so those are both going to be able to retreat even though they're double stacked. Over here, these are going to be able to retreat, so there's not really any damage that I can do to the Cav with my infantry. I'll leave what I have as it is, even though I don't trust it one bit. I don't know how to repair it. Which then means I have a couple of Cav here, the Notzmer and Durlock, if I can read. Durlock, Notzmer's in okay shape. He probably wants to hit the enemy Cav. And I gotta swap batteries yet again. Taking a side because, I mean, I'm really fucking frustrated at this point. Like, I thought I had the system down and now I feel like, but I know I read another David Drake book that was outside the series, but I'm reading volume 1 of the Complete Hammers Slammers. And then somebody asked for a science fiction ground combat game that's in print and all kind of other things, and really specific request criteria for what they want, and to the extent that I can't offer anything, that part of it's the imprint. It turns out that BattleTech is still in print, but it's a collectible minis game now or something. I don't know, but one person said, well, this doesn't fit your in print, but it's easily available, and mentions Hammer Slammers. Apparently there's a board game on it or something. I'm like, wow. You know, ever since I started reading it, and I want to suggest this even though it's completely outside, but I'm like, ever since I started reading the Hammer Slammers, I've been thinking, damn, I want to play some Striker, the Traveler mini system. That just, you know, I mean, I think Hammer Slammers started being written before Striker came out, but it just matches so well. Yeah, the guns and equipment are different and everything. It's all based on the Traveler universe, but just the flavor of it and everything, this mercenary company type idea and everything, it just really, really fits so nicely. All right. So I think I'm going to have to drop down to here, and the question is, do I want to recover a unit, or do I want to try to take advantage of an attack on a unit? Well, let's look at the enemy. The Wickel Cav is under charge, where these two aren't. So I'm going to get to do this one before whatever it's opposing. So I'm going to go with this one, and I'm going to launch my charge, I guess. because it looks to me like I have an advantage there if I've got the names right. And I get a seriously nasty effect here. Let me see, did I do this right? Yeah, I believe so. I ended up, let me see what I got here. I ended up causing a disorder on a disordered cav, which was sitting here. My own unit got a retreat, but was unable to retreat. Remember, there was another unit attacking here that bounced off, and got an ignore retreat is returned to normal, even after the attack. I'm not sure if that's right. Like, is it after the morale check? Probably. So he probably is still disordered from the attack. I'm just trying to think of the timing of how that's handled. But this cav routed, and then when I made the route check, I got an 8, which is sufficient to route the entire command. So that brigade is going to run for the hills. Rain cav forced to continue. My battery's not working right. The charger. Lorraine cav here forced to continue its charge, hits this infantry, and ends up fleeing, part of it at least. The other part's on the flank, but since this guy's in his #1 charge zone with both units were stacked like this, since this unit's in the #1 charge zone as well, he can't go flying off here, although if he was somewhere else he could. So whatever. And once again, thinking this infantry was cav, I started launching cav charges. No, it's not. But they ended up doing the same thing, moving forward, punching. Lost one first fire, but otherwise punching forward. But these guys in the front had to move forward too far to be able to get an attack. I was like, hey, what's the momentum bonus for those? Hessians, Hanoverians, yeah, it's going to be the lesser value +1 for the guys who run a long way. And I'm like, wait, no, that's infantry. Again, I can't remember another game where I couldn't tell infantry from cav very easily. This is, you know, look, NATO symbols, they look incongruous. I hate seeing them in a game of this era. But they're a better solution than this. And I think the little icons on the musket and pike worked a lot better. Screw up the infantry cavalry thing. This second dwarf here managed to break the gendarmes, which they're pretty strong units, but not a huge morale. Nothing has really great morale out of these French cav. You know, we're not seeing any 9s like we were seeing over in Neerwinden. The units don't have quite the staying power. So by being able to get a first fire on an already disordered cav that was not under charge, it broke the unit, and you can see the results running away. So that attempt to defend against infantry with cav, it's just not working, man. It's not working. Yeah, I spent a first fire, but I wrecked an entire cav brigade by doing so. Original cav here was forced to remain in charge. It tried to dress ranks, and its best chance to get out of charge. Ends up hitting formed infantry with first fire. Failed its can't retreat position because it's blocked off by these, and it's only a 2-unit command, so I don't even have to roll for route. That's just gone. Although a little router does spring up and come running through one of these two and disorder all of those. The last of the French units under charge. We have one more allied unit. They're gonna just push this. There's no reason not to. Oh, I have 7 units. Fuck. It's stuck to my hand. I got more units of this command, right? can't be 7, 5. Okay, so this guy will move forward. But these guys hit this and just push it back. They don't do anything really to it. They don't disorder it or anything, because they're not first fire. So that's the end of the charges. But part of why I came back a little before it actually happened is I just wanted to point out that, hey, guess what? I have another line of cav ready to get beaten up and chewed up again. It just makes no sense to me to have these defensive lines of cavalry in sort of the main area. I think this is going to be over pretty quick, to be honest. It just looks like this whole center is just collapsing real fast. I'm already exhausted, so I'm going to put the dice here. Remind me that the French move commands are next. Well, the French have to activate a march command next, is basically what we're at. But yeah, it just, you know, what am I going to do? Charge the infantry, sure, and maybe break it up a little bit? I don't know. You know, I really don't know. I'm giving up lines of you know, whole lines of my wing. And I don't feel like I'm doing all that much to this allied line here. Yeah, it's about midday now, still raining. And cold. It's like I'm tired of winter. It looks like we're on time for the big movement order delay, where the French are just, you know, I mean, I look at the lines, well, there are some interesting places, or one interesting thing. This, the Merida Westel, I don't know what that, Merida Westel. That I could actually do something with, but there's not much it can do. Right now, these don't have a flank. There's nothing I can really hit them with. So I'm going to leave them where they are, let them be chased back or whatever, and maybe take an action to dress ranks. Dressing ranks is dangerous, though. If you don't recover, you're in a position where you're going to start seeing routes and whatnot. So yeah, we'll just start passing here. I don't know if the Allies have anything they particularly want to do with any of their frontline units to get something happening before. They probably would rather the French have to do something here. But there might be some units in the front, looking at this in particular, that it might be advantageous to do something with right away. I think it is. This unit, this Holstein Beck here, is facing Villers. It's also facing the Merid Wit, which I can't do anything about without going into charge. So I'm going to try to go into charge, but I don't need to. Here, this unit's under artillery effective, which doesn't allow it to move, which I think also prevents it from retreating. So it's going to take a hit. So I can hit this, chase it back, hit this, cause a disorder, and hit this, and it's already disordered in its first fire, so that'll actually rout that unit. And that actually caused the whole unit to rout. Now I'm looking, there's supposed to be 4 units to the, four counters to this, the whole brigade. I've only got 3, but I think this is the one that I was missing a counter for. Now, according to this, there should be 4 counters in it. According to this, there should be 4 counters to it. According to the developer, that's all an error. I don't know how much I trust, but simply because I did feel something fall, but maybe it was a nut or something like that. Or some other, I don't know. But, you know, I wasn't able to find the counter. He said that was that. His got personal issues right now that are going on. Part of what's delaying the errata from getting up. And of course, then it's got to be all formatted and everything. But yeah, I guess this is just gone. I'm kind of too fatigued right now, so I'm going to put this over. I might be stopping for a while. I haven't decided yet. I hear the rain going, and it just depresses me, and I want to curl up in bed. All right, I found one I missed. This unit was in charge and didn't get flipped over, so I have to do something about it. I don't know what. Let's see what I'm hitting here. I'm hitting Montmain, and Vivian is nearby. Vivian's right here. This is what I would be actually hitting. I've already hit it. I think I'd like to dress ranks with that unit. So let's go there. That would be a 4 normally, down to a 3 because there's a penalty, up to a 5. We get to dress ranks, and I'll take care of that. And then, I don't know, we're still on the Allied turn for the movement then. I found a unit that should have been activated before. Went and played some raid, mainly watched videos, and started raiding rolls to the next thing I'm hoping to do. It's, I guess, after 6 in the morning here. It's gotten, like, it stopped raining, at least for a little bit. I don't know how long that's going to last for. But I kind of snoozed for about an hour, because an hour-long video, like, was what I went to sleep to, and I woke up near the end of it, and that's all I got in. Getting really tired of this sleeping schedule, but whatever. It's what it is. I know I'm giving a lot of, these personal updates. It's what happens when I'm away from the game in a lot of bits like this. I feel like, I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I have to, or want to give these things more than have to. All right, so I am on still the regular move orders with the allies to go. With the last turn, I don't see anywhere where I want to take the first move. If I can force the French to take a first move, that's great. If I can get a couple of places where I get to react to what they do on the front line. So we're going to get in the delay, flip lots of things over for a long period of time game. On the other hand, find something they want to do. They make an attack with these dragoons, getting into charge, and draw some first fire. This unit, no problem, it's able to retreat. This unit, not able to retreat because it was in a solid line and has a unit behind it. Now, here's the question, because this rule is so badly formed right now, and there's no absolute replacement for it. It's not clear if somehow, if the cav is unable to retreat due to stacking or terrain, it remains in place and is disordered, applies to that initial volley, which maybe, or does it go with the base if the infantry is initial volley, it is expended and the cav unit is disordered? Actually, I don't retreat. Okay, never mind. Yeah, there's no retreat on this. Okay. I thought the cav actually engaged and then pulled back, but apparently they don't. They engaged, they stayed in place, which is very dangerous because now they can be destroyed by an initial volley by this. But I'm okay with that because I can't figure out what to do with these things. Of course, this whole wing could end up collapsing, and that would be terrible, but this is what I wanted to do. All right, back to the LS. Any little movements with rear units, like these guys coming down from across the stream here. These guys each moving up a hex. This guy crossing the river, you know. Just small stuff. On the French side, the only vital thing, these kind of moved up a little bit, but this moved up, so it's forming a channel for the router to go through. That's going to be important. Got to be kind of careful because something like Nagel is in one wing and Bligny is in another. It's not too big a deal right now, but the way the wings are in this one, I feel like the optional system that I came up with is a lot more important so far from what I see over in the Neerwinden side of things. Maybe we'll see it develop where I need to apply it. So far I have not even given it any consideration. Of course, things are so packed in this battle that there's no need for that. At the weird point where I may want to utilize what I think is, I'm not sure this is correct in the ordering here. So the activation priority, and we talked about this before and whether or not I violated it. And I think I'm not going to, I think I'm following it with my reasoning here. But so the first thing it says is when it's activated, priority of activity is to become compliant with command display, then brigade integrity, and finally order compliance. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the Silly Brigade here, which I would love to charge this infantry with. Why? Because it's kind of exposed and I might be able to do something to it, and this is the only damn thing Cav can do. Unfortunately, that first line makes it seem like I can't, because these are the front line here. Silly is in the support line, and I haven't moved it up yet. So I would be violating command display to even go into charge, right? And this is kind of the thing, like, nowhere though does it say I can't try to get into an order. The correction here is brigade's not in compliance with the command display when activated cannot change into a charge order. I think I can change into charge. I think then I'm forced to charge because the charge order doesn't say anything about compliance. You have to charge things that are in front of you. And then on some later turn, I may have to try to leave charge. And there it's kind of weird because under this they say nothing about when you're not in compliance with the command display, you must leave the charge order. And during the actual activation, the charge order will not allow me to turn around and go back, right? So as long as I keep brigade integrity, that charge will just continue. Even though I'm in the support line, I may end up well beyond it. I think that's how it works. Of course, maybe rule 4.5, or no, 4.25, which is under here, somehow covers that. But I don't think so, because it's this activation priority, which is really the thing that ends up controlling this. Let's see. Units may not voluntarily move even or farther to the front or back than units in the brigade in different lines in either direction of the command display if units violate this due to advances or retreats due to combat. See, this makes it sound like I can't do the charge order, right? But it's not entirely voluntary. Like, once I commit to the charge, and there's nothing that says I can't charge if it would violate. And this is the kind of specifics that, like, yeah, I don't know which way the rules intend me to go at all. I'm going to go with the charge order. Having somebody close to me like that feels dangerous, and it'll make it easier for me to shift him in the front if he's even closer. Here we get the result. I'm clearly out of compliance now because I succeeded in getting into that charge order, making the attack. But, you know, I I think as long as I'm consistent, it's not a terrible thing, right? One of the problems is I'm not sure I can maintain consistency because I come back up and I interpret it differently or something. But yeah, it just it feels like there's nothing terribly wrong about this shift forward without having given up my position in the support line, even though now I'm actually the lead unit in the French line right now. The question there is, if something else was intended, more prohibitions would have to be written in favor or against changing your orders into something that'll throw you out of compliance. But either way, more clarity is necessary, because the way that the non-compliance rules, now I've gotten off the page, but the way that the non-compliance over here is written doesn't leave anything to say that I can still do this charge. And, you know, it feels like I made something voluntary to try to roll to get into a charge, right? But it's a charge that I feel like the thing that tilted my decision here the most is the idea that, look, the enemy's broken through the front line. What would that cav be able to do? What would it be likely to do? And attempting to charge the cav and push, or charge the enemy infantry and push them back seems appealing. Now, the thing that really bothers me, this is outside of this, the thing that bothers me about the Allied setup, with the infantry coming first, hitting the cav, is that all their reserves in this, well, nearly all, I see some that aren't, so I lied. All their support units is another line of cavalry, or is a line of cavalry, which isn't going to really be able to deal with this fixed infantry very well. And then the final line includes both infantry and cavalry, so I'll be able to eventually shift things up. But it is a really odd setup. Now, I feel the odd part is really the French put the cav in the front on defense. That's what's weird. And, you know, they could have done that. Like, I mean, I'm sure historically they did that, given that the setup requires it. And it's an interesting situation to look at. It just feels so wrong to me, right? Like, I feel like you want, like at Neerwinden, an infantry line in the front, preferably behind breastworks, of an indeterminate height. There are no breastworks in this scenario. So, you know, hey, were those hasty or not? But anyway, that's something else. This scenario at least seems to have the terrain features all well defined in it. All right, back to figuring out which Allied unit goes. I come back and zoom in on these little individual pieces because it's just kind of so tiring to be flipping units and doing nothing. So when I get to do something, it's like, oh, it's a big deal. I do something in this part of the turn. And before I start playing anymore, I ran down, got myself another pipe. But I realized there was something else I wanted to talk about, which is somewhere between the, hey, gaming stuff, but not this game, and personal stuff. So Clash of Sovereigns here, I've got a copy of it. Great. I just got a shipping notice that GMT was sending me something. I don't remember if they, so I haven't checked my email to see if they billed me anytime recently, or my statements or whatever. But I went over to their site and looked around because I got a notice that they're shipping me Clash of Sovereigns again. I looked up it's really not easy because they don't tell you on the shipping invoice what's coming. But they do give you a number for the order, and I went and looked up the number for the order, and it's Clash of Sovereigns. And I'm like, whoa, that's screwed up. Did I fuck up yet again? I thought I cleaned all that up and made everything nice because I had a duplicate come for something before. And again, you know, I pay like $20 in shipping and handling. Well, I pay whatever it costs me to ship it back, right? And then they credit me with everything else, or something like that. Maybe they just credit me with the cost of the game and I have to pay the shipping and handling both ways. But basically I'm paying like 2/3 of the cost of the game if that's the case, and for nothing, right? And I'm just like, wow, that really sucks. And I did that for one, I don't know if it was this year or late last year or something like that. But I was really unhappy about having done that. But found the tools on the site that allow you to kind of capture that stuff. It's always been a bitch and a half to keep track of the pre-orders and everything. But yeah, if they end up sending me another one and I ended up paying for it and it doesn't get credit or whatever, even if it does, because I fucking hate having to, deal with the problem. And it's becoming more and more, it feels like it's becoming more common for whatever reason. I think I just decide I'm done. I can't cope with the company any longer. In this case, I looked on the website and I had only ordered one according to the website where it says how many you ordered, which is a really, really helpful thing because I regularly am like given information of, oh, are you interested in this game? And I forget that I pre-ordered it already and ended up pre-ordering again. So I actually have a lot of like deleted from order here, there, and there. Often very soon after I make the order, I'm like, wait a minute, didn't I order this? But not that I dislike being reminded of things, but like I completely forget that there are things, it's usually like a couple of years before a P500 between when it gets announced and when it comes out. Again, though, I don't trust GMT enough to pull the trigger again. The question, of course, remains is, should I just clear out all my pre-orders and say, fuck it, I'm done? And that's what I may do at this point. Right now I'm not ordering anymore, but I'm not deleting any of my orders. But if I end up having to pay for another game, and especially this case where I'm absolutely certain I've looked through and every bit of information I have, it would be a fuck up on their part that if they charged me twice and did it. And even if I have to, okay, if I get charged, I'm definitely deleting every goddamn last order that I've got with them, and I'm just done. If I really want their games, I'll go out and hunt them down and buy them from a third-party site. I'm done with that. But I think I'm just done with the P500 beyond what I've already put in. I feel kind of bad removing things from it. But yeah, it really always should have just thrown a pop-up at you of, you already have one of these, right? And have a different interface for stores and whatnot, because they order differently. They don't pay the list price on stuff, right? So who's going to order 4 or 5 of them? Well, you might. There might be some people, but it's okay to give them that pop-up warning. Anyway, back to the game. Thing to note, bridges appear to have no effect in the game. They're not on the well, they're actually on the terrain chart here, but they're not over here. And I assume that, the formations are just deployed in such a way that the idea of crossing a bridge is impossible. Now, why causeways, which sound a lot like bridges, don't work the same, like they actually allow me to cross it at a cheaper cost, I don't know. But I'm ignoring bridges entirely. They're not mentioned anywhere except on the terrain key with no explanation in the rules. And let's just make sure. Crossing the Nebel. Does it say anything about rivers, about bridges? It does not. It says any unit crossing the Nebel without crossing at a causeway must do this. So nothing about the bridges. I could see where the causeways are very wide things that were put down to help the units through the water more easily, like a regular stream or whatever. But it's just, another one of those, is that really what they meant? I'm not sure. find myself forming brigades up in things that look more like columns, just to make sure that I have route paths going through. I don't think there's a problem with that. To some extent, though, it feels a little too much, you know? But I think these hexes are all impassable entirely, even though they have some land on that side. It seems the best to call them just purely impassable, and I want to leave room in case the attack comes through. I could have set up in these columns, and that probably would have been wiser, because it feels really odd to be, you know, positioning myself into column during the attack. But it's not until now that I sort of realize, oh, I need that. And doing another little column, the French are now going to be forced. The Allies have just completed their last action. The French are going to be forced to take the first action on the front line again. Now, they've already done one here for the movement units, order units, but now they're going to have to start triggering stuff, and I'll probably start over here because that gives me an advantage where I can skip over and start forcing the Allies to have to go first as well, because that's a nice big amount of frontage covering two of my French units. And I forgot about the fact, since the French fired one off here, I've got this Fink that I can activate. I tried to get them into charge to drive the cav back. They failed. Wilke here also failed in his, but it does mean that the French are still on the back foot in terms of, like, yeah, they got to pick first everywhere on the defense. We finally get a charge order. Rowe is going to charge. I'm going to fire my battalion guns, which causes a hit here. That's going to just give me a slight bonus in combat, which, since I'm hitting into a village, is not going to be terribly good. It's also going to mean we're going to be able to fire, once the attack is declared, a hit here. Now that underlined gives me an advantage. I'm trying to remember what that means. I think that only means if there's open flanks, who gets the open flank. But I don't really recall where I'm going to find that. Let's take a look. It's not going to be here. It's going to be in infantry value, in infantry combat, but I don't know. Let's take a look to see if underlined is in there. It's not. And I really don't know. Maybe I can find it under here. See, they tell me how many ranks there are, but that doesn't, that's just the picture, honestly. I don't see any description here, maybe under units. I'm trying to figure out what the word is, but I don't think I'm going to find it here. I think what I have to do is basically look through the entire rules to find that rule, mainly because weird little thing, not in the first game as far as I recall. I do remember the rule for it. Like, I remember knowing the rule for it. I think what it is if the units are in a position where flanking could happen, only one side gets the flanking. Now, is that spelled out here? Yeah, here it is. If both sides have open flanks and either has their CV underlined and the other does not, increase the underlined CV by 1. So, yeah. So if both sides have an exposed flank, that gives me some cover instead of just, hey, they're at even. I don't know if it's because I clipped the counter or not, but some of these are awfully close to the bottom of the counter. I didn't clip, you know, underneath. So I don't really think that this is a matter of counter clipping. These are very hard to distinguish in some cases. But these guys have an underlined marker on them. I can see it barely. But if they went a little bit worse, it would be gone. I'm doing things wrong. This hit has to be on this one because this unit had the brigade guns, and I did this correct, I think. I don't remember who had it. I think this one actually had it, so this one has to be on this one. The reason is I can't hit these cav, which is what I was planning on doing, because I've got infantry targets in front of each of these. So I have to skew this so that it hits all the infantry targets. I think, right? Like, if I declare this one's attacking this one's attacking this, then the only valid place for this to attack is here. But I think I actually have to do the attacks into the village instead, because I can. Again, that's left kind of ambiguous. And with a bunch of pretty bad attacks, the only one that was a 0 was this one with the artillery support on a weaker unit. With a bunch of pretty bad attacks, this is not a terrible result. A couple of firefights, and yeah, I had to retreat, but was able to because I had an open wing over there. Sort of open, right? Like, it's because this unit is actually kind of like this, but now it's like this. And now it fills in the gap and has its own gap. Fine. I wouldn't like the idea of like leaving things like this, which I feel like my option would kind of force me to do. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's not that terrible. I'd still be aligned so that I could fight this and I would be exposed there. These guys retreated and leaving a gap in the line. Gaps in the line happen at the hex level, so why wouldn't they happen at the sub-hex level if I was doing that? Right. Now what the hell do the French do? Well, they're forced to make a first choice again. They're just going to have to open up spaces everywhere. Now, I've got some free spaces here that the Allies did not use, so sure. Always forget about, hey, it's the useless wing. That's okay though. A lot of the Allied units had already charged, so there's actually only one unit left that can try to do anything. This Bilke, or Bleke, or something like that. Bilk. Well, might as well try a charge, yeah? We are at movement, march to charge is 4, and I have a +1. And I get a couple more not really good attacks across the stream into the village, etc. About as bad as they get. But my die rolls were such that we got a firefight here and a retreat there. That's fine. I think that means it's only French units now, and that means these French could do something to react. Now, Fink is not in charge. He's infantry. Probably, well, no problem. I'm already fired off there. So out of these two, I probably don't want to leave my hex. The question is, do I want to fire back across the stream? And I think the answer is no. And why is there a gun on Fink? Oh, Fink's infantry. Okay, so I can't attack this. I could attack this hex, try to get this firefight out of the way. I don't particularly want to. I want stasis. Stasis is good because I'm playing for delay of game as the French. That's my way of winning. So I will probably. I don't see a great reason for trying to dress ranks. I can't repair these units any. I could get some first fire up in the front. I could thin the line so that it's easier to withdraw, but that's really about it. And I don't particularly want to do either of those things. So yeah, I think we'll just pass through and we'll do the dress ranks. The French had any units that were in dress ranks at the beginning of the turn. Oh no, there's an Allied unit. Shit, I forgot about this one. Let's do it. Notzmer. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference. He's back here. We'll recover these. And push this guy forward a hex. Okay. And that means everything's done. I've already done my routers. They didn't cause any problems this time. A lot of them came off the map. And I got a danger here where these guys are going to have to do something to make some room for them, but that's fine. There's time. These other ones, there's nothing in their way. They'll be able to run for free. Running routers, running free, which means it's cleanup time, and that's it. Brigade gun markers, they just come off the map, they've fired their one shot, and they're just done. Or battalion guns, whatever. Those have, other battalion guns, I don't know. Those have no more effect on the game. They get one time to, you know, give you a +1. Did I misuse them? I don't know, maybe, but the other artillery, of course, come off. We unflip things, and we go for the big unflip over here, too. Regarding the bridges, I'm a little disturbed. So, I can make a pretty reasonable argument that, like, especially the big infantry formations aren't going to form up in column to march across a bridge. The cav, I don't know, man. It depends on how close the enemy is and stuff like that, right? But I'll give them a pass too, because it makes life way too hard, you know, to separate it out for that, for just that. But the artillery, and I'm not even sure the artillery can cross the river, even at a causeway. Well, no, they can only do it not at a causeway is what I fear. It's fine, I can pretend the causeway's not there, I guess. But because the way the causeway is written, it's what, 2 extra movement points, I think? A unit may cross by expending 2 movement points for infantry, 3 for cav. Yeah, it doesn't even talk about artillery. So I don't think artillery can go on the causeway, but the artillery can spend its entire movement to cross without the causeway. So, but the one thing that I feel, and I'm okay with that, whatever the causeway is, I don't know. I was going to say, if it's this wide kind of thing that I'm saying it is, yeah, you could fucking pull guns across it, but okay, it'll have no additional effect, right? Because it'll take up all their movement points, whatever. So it's going to be the same impact as just crossing the river without the causeway. I'm a little disturbed by it because I would think the guns would have more trouble than anything else getting through mucky crap. But the bridge, man, I would think artillery, because it's not a lot of guns. Let's see how many we're talking about here. And remember, we're talking 20-minute turns. Yeah, I don't know where we got scale here. Units in the game represent an infantry battalion, 2 to 3 cavalry squadrons. Artillery units are 8 to 10 guns of various calibers. In 20 minutes, I could see the effect on movement being none, but I would actually argue you probably just shouldn't be able to bring the guns across this thing at all, except at causeways or bridges, and then it costs your full movement or something like that. But hey, they can make it through, you know, whatever. Fine. To the issue of unflipping. What I'm finding, the front to back, look, I can do this perfectly fine, but things are tight enough in that however I position myself, when I'm somewhere in the midst, it starts getting harder to flip these side to side, right? And I think it's not something general in gaming. So like the SPI argument doesn't work. And I came up with the other argument of why it's the way they are in the SPI counters, so that they can proof the counter sheets more effectively and not come up with mistakes like they did here. But I'm finding when I'm in crowded spaces, it's sometimes it's harder to do the side to side. I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm disturbing things. So what I do is I flip like this and then back over. So I'm doing a double flip with my fingers, which is clearly more difficult, but it's easier than trying to get the precision of a flip with my arm angled funny and everything. I sure go off on the weirdest things, don't I? But I feel like that's actually a big deal in this particular game. I'm going to try going to the other side and seeing if it's easier to flip from the other side, as if I was the opposing, you know, as if I was two opposing people unflipping. We have on an overall view, I don't know. You know, the French cav suffered some serious hits back here and are kind of clearing up. I got another line of cav coming there. Elsewhere, not much has happened. A little bit of stasis over here, which is to be expected. This hasn't really developed as much. There's another line of cav coming up. It's just cav versus cav running this one. So this is going to fight out and may actually be the eventual winner, simply because cav versus cav is more likely to generate results. The fluidity of the combat means there's more likely to be results, which means that this is likely to clear out quicker than this, where the cav is going to come up against, well, where the infantry is coming up against the cav and kind of, it's a delaying type situation there, which may be good for this scenario. But then it's eventually going to hit the fresh infantry. The fresh infantry is probably going to win that fight in general, but then the French will be low on reserves. They'll have to pull reserves from elsewhere as this becomes the front line. Of course, I've got a fair amount everywhere. I just think that this, which was the historical breaking point for the French in the center, may actually be less likely to break, in part because the Allies are coming up with infantry. But once their infantry hits the French infantry, after being expended pretty heavily on the cav, it may be difficult for the cav to break the infantry, right? If there's enough infantry to hold the line. And again, I've got reserves elsewhere. Whereas here, it's pretty much cav versus cav. Now again, I got reserves I can pull in from elsewhere if I need to, and that includes infantry reserves, which feel really, really more valuable than throwing them. Like, if I were setting up this attack with the victory conditions that exist, I would actually probably set up my cav to face the strong points that the French are holding. Here, they've got them here, and here, and try to use my infantry, which is capable of successfully breaking stuff a little bit better, at least in reserve back here, to finish off, say, this sector. This sector, sure, I would probably have a mixture of cav and infantry, but I probably wouldn't be committing infantry to attack these villages if I had free setup. Just to give you kind of an idea of, like, yeah, what would it work? You know, what would Enrico do here if he was in command? Well, you know, and the answer to that question, if I'm correct in terms of the gameplay, may indicate something about the efficacy of the game in terms of demonstrating reality. And I'm not sure, but you know, Marlborough was quite a good general, right? And he has decided to put infantry up against those strong points to attack them, rather than, so, you know, maybe the thing that's wrong is the victory conditions, right? Maybe if the French hold those strong points perfectly fine, and, you know, but again, I may be wrong about the gameplay as well. I may not have the best grasp of this. I can guarantee you I don't have a complete grasp of the system. I don't even have a complete grasp of the rules. The book doesn't have a complete grasp of the rules yet, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, for people who are involved, you know, for example, the developer, hey, maybe there's something interesting to be said there if what I'm coming away from with it is that, yeah, I think that I would avoid attacking those strong points at all, that they're just not a good idea. Like, wherever the French have, like, wings, because wings are fixed, right, by the rules, wherever I have wings that have, you know, a town in them, well, that's going to be pretty hard to dig them out of. Whereas here, it's very, very easy to dig anything out, And I feel like the infantry is the best at attacking. So even though the cavalry, the cav versus cav fight, hey, I may have a preponderance of cavalry here and be able to win this fight anyway. The fact that if I had the same cav setup, cav in the front to make the attack on his weak spot, and then infantry line to back it up. Now, honestly, if it was like hidden deployment beforehand, like the other, I can't remember the name. I mean, I can come up with names like Niederwinden. Is that it? Neerwinden. I want to put extra D's in there and whatnot. If that, now what was I saying? Oh yeah, that had basically you're simultaneously deploying your unknown forces, right? The forces that there's not a good enough history present to be able to talk about. That is simultaneous as far as I can tell. So if you're simultaneously deploying, it may not be clear. I would probably not put my cav in front. I would probably put a line of infantry, a support line that's got a lot of cav in it, and then maybe a mixed line in the back to be able to react as needed and maybe shift things as my 3 lines in this sector. And the same here. Because I see the disadvantage to putting infantry in the front. But here's the problem. If cav is in the front and you're approaching a line of infantry, you're probably going to want to restructure your wing and start shifting units, right? And you're not going to, like, instead of engaging, you're going to want to do that. So, like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the infantry can push the cav out of the way. There's no question about that. But it does get worn down. And infantry is really the only answer to infantry. Well, to a nice solid infantry line. When you're facing infantry that's, already broken up a little bit or whatever, or in columns to let routers through or anything like that, sure, the cav can do wonders. There's no question about that. It can do just as well. But when you're facing a solid line of infantry, there's nothing you can do. You just stare at it and wave, and, if you've got some way of outflanking it or something, great. But otherwise, screw it, man. And that's why, like, a whole cav line coming in here in undefended territory, if the setup were free and simultaneous, there's no way you would do this. And what happened? Did Marlborough have, information beforehand? This is all cav. Okay, I can just put my cav there. I got more, and I'll use my infantry where I want to. But the victory conditions of being able to break any wing being sufficient, to me, would mean I would not waste my infantry. I would put small cav forces on these wings just to hold the wings and not fight the enemy at all. Just to make sure, like with this one, that I don't lose the wing and that the enemy can't just, march out and very easily take it. But, the point is, though, the victory conditions may be dependent on what the setup actually is. Like, that initial setup is part of why the victory conditions are what they are. Just like the battlefield, the choice of the battlefield is, to some large extent, what the victory conditions are, So, maybe you can't do any kind of free deployment in this because it would break what the victory conditions would end up having to be. I mean, the idea of shifting a couple of infantry units over this way, which is still possible, right? Like, I can still just do that. I just have to clear the line. It's gonna take a lot of time to redeploy into the position that I'd want to, into the formations I'd want to have attacking. So there's kind of some, like, there's something going on in my head that I'm just saying, I just don't get it. Like, the victory conditions can't just be the deployment because I can shift the deployment. But when you take the concept of time and deployment into play together, the victory conditions do become more constraining, but are they right? You know, what if I waited a day and redeployed my forces? Should I lose the battle? Well, maybe the French disengage then and get away. And go find another battlefield. I just don't know. Or maybe they dig in or something along those lines. So that wouldn't be good. But it's just like I don't have quite a grasp on why the combination, like, this is not the deployment I would use to win these victory conditions with the Allies. With the French, I still argue that I would want some of these cav in the reserve here instead. Maybe a line of cav in the front to slow the infantry, to slow up whatever the Allies throw in. And my feeling there also is that the defender probably is set up before the attacker is. You know, you're talking, when you look at the historical stuff in the playbook, it talks about how the French artillery are delaying the deployment of the forces, especially Prince Eugen. So if that's the case, the Allies get here, they see what the French have set up as a defense, they can probably tell that there's all cav here and say, you know what, a line of infantry there would make a lot more sense, and this cav, some of it over here, and fuck it, we won't fight there. That all makes sense. Does it still make sense that defeating the cav here by any means is sufficient to win the battle? And it feels like it should be. So, yeah, I just don't know. But again, maybe I'm misunderstanding how effective the infantry would be in finishing this or any wing off actually is. All right, 120 turn, I did the artillery fire. Counter battery, got me an artillery hit, but that doesn't do shit. The gun's fired back right in front of them, boom. Other than that, not too much. I got some long range fire here that maybe I shouldn't have even attempted, but it'll give me some advantages perhaps here. Otherwise, I think it's just Allied guns moving here, there, and everywhere. Let's see, I got one under there as well. Seem to have run out of French guns. So far, we got like one Allied battalion gun in there. That's it. The French losses. And that'll put us to the wing commands. I don't know if there's much I want to do, but we're beginning, at least on the French side, to lose a few units. So it might be worth trying to divert something. Of course, with their bad commanders, it's not going to be easy. Example, even with the silly brigade up here, it's still in the support line. I tried to move it to get it into compliance so that I have a little bit more flexibility, because it's going to be out of compliance and have to turn around and march back. I don't know if it has to leave charge. I don't think that was part of the compliance requirement here, right? Fuck, I'm trying to remember. Brigade's not in compliance with the command display, cannot change into charge. Yeah, it's not gonna force me out of charge. So I don't know how much difference it actually makes. I might have been better off trying to move one of these brigades up into place instead, but I felt like I really ought to be doing this. And I had a lot of bonuses actually. I don't know what it came to, like a 6 or something, but I rolled pretty badly. Now this Lutzig Oberglau, why is it not an Oberglau strong point? Gap. that's going to be hard to move through. So, like, I could commit this to try, or I could try to commit this to get it here, but it becomes very hard to keep moving if that's the case. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to do. The Allies pretty much have said, yeah, well, we're fine. we're good how things are. Yeah, I could get another brigade in here. There's just not room, you know? And that's kind of the problem. I have that on this other wing, too. Why are you still flipped? I don't have room for another brigade to go up there, even though there's enough number. You know, I'm allowed to have 3 brigades in the front, but my brigades are big right now, so yeah, I don't want to push anything there. This is allowed to have 6 in the front, but I don't need any more with the Allies. This is the useless wing. This wing looks pretty solid right now. I'm going to keep it as is, and same here. I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything from the French side that I really wanted to do other than this. I could commit more forces in the reserves and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. One of the issues is once things start looking bad, the low die rolls may cause you issues. Like the low chance of success may cause you some serious issues with getting something shifted from one wing to another or whatever. But until you know where the problem is going to be. Now, I think the problem is going to be here, honestly. This is where things look the worst. But I think I'll give it another turn. So I'm just going to flip. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. And go to the brigades, and that puts me into charge. Now, I have more Allied units in charge, so I start with that. And I guess I'm going to show a little bit of what's going on here. The BLK unit is going to continue its charge. I moved into place here, fired my brigade guns or whatever, or battalion guns. This guy gets a first fire, though. And this is something new that we haven't seen yet. This is already hit. It takes a depth marker as its first hit, thereby not reducing the strength of the unit, which is kind of cool. I like depth markers. I don't know why. Elsewhere, I don't think we have any first fires, so I got a firefight here that I can't change, and I'll do some bad attacks that are really not going to go well for me, but whatever. Other than that first fire, basically, well, these guys each did a hit to each other on top of that. But otherwise, it's pretty much just a bounce off the enemy. Oops. Again, the standard problem. I flipped this over thinking I was getting first fire. No, that's Cav. I just can't see it. I got row attacking here. A couple of units. One first fire came in here. Is that where I want it? It's not where I can put it because I have to attack the infantry, so the first fire actually goes over here. This unit had a first fire. It was the bottom unit in there. And that means we're going to attempt to clear this firefight. And we bounced off here and ended up getting 2 units firefighting with that unit now. I'm being generous with the firefight markers right now. Once they start running low, I'll have to use them. You know, I'd have to use like one firefight marker to cover these 3 units, like I did in Neerwinden. But for now, I figure I'll express each relationship with a single unit for as long as I can get away with that. Let's talk about what happened. The silly Cav was positioned here and here. This one was not disordered yet. I left it in charge so I could hit the flank of that. I just bounced off, didn't do anything. Fine. Scheckendorf here, or Scheckendorf, I don't know. Kept their charge order as well, chased the Cav away, that's it. That's all they can do. Basically, they're tied up with the artillery and everything. No good answers there. There may be an answer. There may be something happening with the French unit here, being able to hit that infantry in the flank under the artillery effective, and that's going to be ugly. And that would be one reason to have left the charge order, because even though I'm pinned down by the artillery, it still counts as if I'm like engaging, even though it's my flank and I'm heading this way and everything. It counts as though I'm attacking for all purposes within the rules. So I don't even have to get into charge with this unit. It can just shift and do that. I wasn't really paying attention. Some of the mechanisms here are still, you know, clunky in my head, right? Like, I'm not internalized enough, and it's only now that I realize that I had that issue. Then the other thing, the Lorraine Cav couldn't get into anything other than charge. This unit, I guess, has to stay there. This one could move up and cause me problems. I'm going to leave it back where it is, and it just basically passes, milling around in front of the infantry where they can be shot up, I guess. That's a first fire that's going to rout that unit if I so desire. Is that the best thing? I mean, again, it blunts the attack of the infantry for when they get up here. But I have a lot of line coming, and chewing up that cav seems like a necessity if I'm going to win this wing, which there's some chance. And so the Earlville, I can't read upside down. The Earlville or something like that. The infantry came up. They chased a cav unit back, but they hit the Lorraine cav with the first fire, routing it, and routing it through another Lorraine unit. Those are the only two Lorraine units, so in the bag with them. And, you know, we see that cav's just disintegrating, that cav defense. It can't hold up against the infantry, but it does blunt it. That's the point. Two lines of cav, I don't know how much sense that makes, because the first line blunts the infantry. What does the second line do? It gets chased back and becomes a muddled mess in front of the French infantry, is the only thing I can think of that's going to happen here. And then the last couple of units that are under charge, I think, are over here. Palenque moved forward. I think they managed to chase some things. I'm not sure, because it doesn't really look like they did. So I don't know. But the Holtz and Beck here did chase French cav back a little bit. One from here. One from here. This may have been chased by the Palenque off that unit. Just, okay. You know, I'm just pushing the cav around, that's all. And not really doing anything. But the cav's not doing anything either. It's just this, like, and the thing is, it's going to be a bigger mess and a problem for the French to have all that cav in the front, because I got to get it out of there somehow, and my command situation is not, you know, my commanders aren't sufficient to get it out of there safely and try to reform it and use it for anything useful. Its chances of doing anything to the infantry is just so low, even with advancing infantry, even with flanks and whatnot. We saw the bounce off here. I think that puts me to the movement, guys, and that'll be a French. It is cold. I don't have my heat on. I'm like, look, it's fucking May. I refuse to turn the heat on. I've been using my heater in my bedroom, my little space heater. But other than that, I'm like, no, I'm just not doing it. But it's like, I don't know, not quite see your breath, but colder than I like. Back to the personal stuff rather than the game, and then I'll get to the movement. You know, I went downstairs, fucked around on the computer for a while, started thinking about, geez, I really enjoyed, a while back I had a day or two where I got to play Crusader Kings 3 for free. And it's been on my mind for a while, so I decided to look it up. And I hate the way Paradox sells their games now. You know, they're like, it's just this really horrible design as far as I'm concerned, where it's like, yeah, you buy the base game, and it's a fair amount of money, fine, you know, but then all these fucking DLCs, and they don't tend to go down in price like Crusader Kings 2 went way down in price when 3 came out. Sure. Okay, and I got a bundle with that. The problem is, I didn't really enjoy Crusader Kings 2, but I really got a kick out of Crusader Kings 3 because it felt like kind of a cross between Crusader Kings, make it a little lighter, you know. It was easier to read on screen, all kind of stuff like that, and that's kind of important to me now as my eyes go bad. But it also like felt like a combination of that with King of Dragon Pass, which I really got a kick out of, but I had trouble getting into it for some reason. Like, I don't know. Like the mechanisms that you used in it just, they felt alien to me in some ways, and I don't know. But I was getting enough of a kick out of playing Crusader Kings 3 that, you know, a couple of years later, I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll see if it's gone down in price. It didn't really, but there's like CD key places, and they're trustworthy enough and whatnot from what I can tell, where you can get like a Steam key for it or whatever. One of the problems is it's on Steam, and I have most of my games over on GOG now. I used to do everything on Steam. I actually have duplicates of stuff because even though GOG lets you like consolidate everything in one place, but yeah, they don't hold the they let you get the earlier ones, but they don't let you get the newest stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to buy the vanilla game. The CD key for that is like $15, whereas through Steam itself, it's like 40. And I'm like, $15, yeah, you know, that's not a bad deal. I would pay that. I would pay that for the vanilla game if there weren't other things behind it. Like if they didn't come out with all that other stuff. But all that other stuff convinces me, yeah, I'm not sure I want to do that. I had a lot of fun. But what I did find out is like in a couple of days, I can play it for free again for a day or something. That'll help me make my decision. Anyway, back to this. You know, what I'm reading for the next rule set is what I think actually convinced me to look at Crusader Kings. Just to give you a hint of what I think's coming next. Well, because I think this is a little new, it's not different from what I've done before, but I don't think I've explained it. So I look at the French Frontline units, and I just look across the line to see, hey, is there anything I want to do something with? You know, this Merode will, do I want to do something with that? Yeah, I actually probably do. I didn't notice this is part of it, even though it's the same color and everything. I probably want to dress ranks with them. So that's what I'm going to do. But I basically looked down the entire line to figure out, is there anything in the front line I want to do something with before I start just passing with the back line stuff? And I think the situation has changed enough. I can't do anything, I can't attack this infantry. I just can't. I don't have flanks to hit. Over here I could attack to get rid of their first fires, but they're going to have to get rid of them anyway when they attack me. So fuck them. I'll leave my dragoons just standing there at attention to take it. That may not be a wise idea, right? Because it means that they'll take the... Yeah, no, they'll have to retreat. Wow. Yeah, I actually want to hit them. I actually really want to hit them. I want to do something because I can't retreat from here, which means I'll make the anti-retreat checks and I might rout my unit. Fuck. But I can't go into charge and I can't hit them without going into charge, so I don't know. All right, we'll try to dress ranks with these guys. For the Allies, there's one unit in the front that I have thoughts about. It's the Fugger unit. That's these. I'm under an artillery hit. That's not cool. I could, if I go into charge, I could first fire this and move forward. But if I don't go into charge, I could just march out, march by. There's a nice big gap there that I can march through, and that might cause some interesting effects What would those effects be? I don't know. I really don't know, but what I do know is that I have another line coming. One thing that could be problematic, though, is that routers would come through my units. Enemy routers might end up causing problems with my units. Do I want to cope with that? Oh, this isn't first fire. I'd be hitting cav versus cav. Yeah, that's not good. That is not good. Of course, I could be getting the flank hit first, which isn't too bad. What am I facing here? This is Vivian. Vivian's in dress ranks, so I don't get a free attack on them. Well, let's see if I get the charge, and either way, I'll try to advance. Regarding what I just brought up, and what just happened, I ended up hitting them. If I'd known I had this damaged, I did a movement shift order in the stack, and then I didn't, I could have recovered this. But anyway, I charged this, hit it, destroyed it. And I actually have an advance with a follow-up attack on the Vivian unit, if I so desire. But I have to advance into here, which means I hit a front on, which isn't as cool as it could be. But I'll still do it, because I'm paying the price in disorder for attacking already. But it doesn't take effect until afterwards. But this routed unit, and I'm like, well, gee, maybe the French want to route through here. Yeah, you can't route through enemy units, only friendly units. So we're going to disorder the Vivian unit, and then Fugger is going to hit it, which is going to be exceptionally good. And we end up destroying the Vivian unit, and we're really, like I said, I think this is where it's going to be won. It looks like I'm plowing through there. If the final cav unit goes away, that'll move everything up. I only have a support line. I have nothing in reserve. I've got to get things over there. I probably should have done it already, to be honest. But this wing doesn't look good either. This might be a very, very fast battle. I want to go into what happened. So there were 2 units in the stack here. The first one got retreated. Because there's an open flank, it doesn't cause any problems for the unit behind it. But the retreat, since they were both disordered already, is a route and goes in and joins these. And then this would have had an advance into here, but it doesn't get it because there's another unit there. But then the Vivian Brigade dissolved into a route, and that joined here. And you can see, if you watched really, really stupidly close, this had been a 1 before. It's now a 2 because more recent routing units have joined those. And I took this Quetkin and hit the infantry line in the flank there, and I got a first fire on it and I fucked up. That's an infantry unit, not a cav. So I have not hit it yet, but I do a point of damage. I have to actually roll on the combat table for that. I thought this was cav. That should be underneath. Let's do the quick die roll here. So I've got a 2 to 1, so I'm at +1. I've got an improvement of 1 from the artillery hit, so I'm at +2 over here on the infantry table. I'm hitting it in the flank, I believe. I'm not positive of that. I don't know if it's, but I have a bonus on flank. Yeah, I have more flank than coverage than he does. No, actually I don't. That's a gun underneath me. I moved on top of the gun. I'm not sure I'm allowed to do that, but I don't think reorganizing with regard to guns actually costs you anything. I think you can do it in a charge. So let's just call that +2. And we get a nasty old 9, which throws us out of there. So let's restack this. I think this is this way. Actually, I don't. I think I had the flank, but it doesn't make a difference in terms of the result. The +3 table is the same. I think I did have a flank shot there. But anyway, that's that. And that's basically the only thing the French wanted to do here. I didn't even have to get into charge. I don't want to get into charge. Right. I do not want to be in charge. Fair enough. So I will stay where I was in movement mode. It's just so hard to remember all the little mechanical complications that come up, mental mechanical stuff, as to what can and can't you do at any given moment. Now, neither side has anything in the front that they actually want to commit to quite yet. I got these couple of wing units here. I don't want to do either of them right now. So the Allies start flipping and passing, and the French, I mean, maybe I want to do something with Ainsley's Cav back here, because they could hit this de Herteville infantry if they end up in a charge. Or not. This is here. I thought the unit, I picked up the unit to see if it would route and then put it back. Not under its charge marker. Yeah, that's a possibility. But anyway, I'm just flipping units at this point. I think I just caught myself cheating. That Ainsley unit that I wanted to charge, I can't. That was like this. It is not in compliance. I pushed the infantry back for whatever value that was at and bounced off of it first, but I actually can't do that. I think I have to remain in March, and I have to try to fix my situation. I'll try to dress ranks with them instead. And I do not succeed in that. And again, you know, it's like, so what that means is I have to get myself behind this Merad Whittlestein, which is the unit in the front, and what else? Marenbach is also in the front here. Oh, this is a different wing, so that's fine. But yeah, I'm gonna have to pull back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these guys also have to pull back. Because I'm online with them, which is not good. But, you know, with Silly in the same line doing shit, it just feels weird, right? Because they're further up, even though they're part of the support line. But I gotta try to, I just have to try to internalize, you know, how these mechanisms actually apply and how they don't do what I think they did in some cases. The problems I'm seeing are because of this stupid Cav defending situation, because they're just getting pushed back instead of anything else, and they're just muddling up the lines and creating a fucking mess. The kind of thing that you did not see at Nearwinden at all. I had to swap batteries. It's going to be an Allied pick next, and I can almost guarantee they're just going to flip a counter somewhere. Oh, this push against the Cav, it's doing other problems too. The Broglie here is back in the support line, right? Same problem Ansley had. Broglie is up here with Merod Whittlestein or whatever. But it's got a bigger problem. I can't move them back because there's reserves back there. So I've got to move this Tresson back and make room for Broglie to pull back as well. See what a mess this is making. Now, I don't know technically if I had to move these. These guys were not out of compliance. These guys couldn't get into compliance without them moving back. So maybe I could just try as hard as I could and create a really dense clump here, but that didn't seem terribly good either, so I'm falling back. Unfortunately, I can't fall back to Sonderheim. That's in a different wing. Even though the straight line of attack would be down there. That's just not how the wings work. Now again, I am willing to twist the wings a little bit if that's necessary, but that would cause problems because this wing needs an exit route. And the Danube is cutting me off. You know, if there was more map here, I could get away with it, but I don't think I really can. So this is just sort of collapsing under the weight of its own existence, basically, and the way it's deployed with the cav in the front. It's just causing huge problems. Not that this is going much better for the French. We're at a point where the Allies still have a fair amount of stuff in the rear, some 4 brigades or so, and the French are out. So the French are going to have to start triggering units. I think I'm on an Allied one right now, but now I'm on the French. And yeah, they're going to have to make their decisions at the front, what the fuck they want to do. And, you know, it's not too hard. I'll just, oh, I have these. Okay. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. I forgot. I didn't notice these. So I lied. And I have guys like this who are doing nothing. I thought I had lost enough French units that would happen, but as it stands, the French are going to force the Allied forces to make the first pick, I think. Just scan through. You know, it gets kind of confusing because I see stuff like this that's, you know, got a marker on top of it, and I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on. And then I've got the leaders who I haven't flipped over. They should be, but I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything with them, so fuck it, I'll just pass and leave it that way and figure my little brain can handle it. But it can't. But yeah, it turns out that the Allies have to make the first move again. And again, it'll be the same situation as before. I do something like this, and then I force the French to have a couple of moves, perhaps. Now, nothing happened over here, and so the French can pass with these, which they do. Fink, though, got charge, which allowed him to push against the cav, disordering one of them. And these dragoons are just in trouble, and the cav behind them, too. You can't face infantry in these kind of confined circumstances, and it's just like, the units that I have as the French are not good for this terrain, and certainly not the way they're set up. You know, I almost feel, maybe I'm not understanding something, but it feels almost like some of this reminds me of like the old SPI Agincourt game, where it's like, gosh, why don't I just say, I mean, there's just no chance as far as I see for the French. There's just no chance. Now, maybe I'm mistaken again. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something important in the system. Agincourt over there, that's a game that if you play with the rules for it, with the historical scenario, the French have to do what they did historically, and it just dooms them. And I kind of feel like the setup here just dooms the French. I don't see what they can do to hold the line. Unlike at Neerwinden, where the Allied forces on the defense, they're at a disadvantage, there's no question. There's more French troops. They're going to get overwhelmed. But at the very least, you kind of feel some hope when you see the French start slamming against the breastworks and everything, and you're like, that didn't hurt. That didn't hurt. I mean, sure, this doesn't hurt. This isn't going to hurt. This isn't going to get hurt. But other places, the deployment is just so ugly with all that French cav. Looks like it's time for me to swap batteries again. And what am I on? I think I'm on a French action. But yeah, the Allies are out of units in March under movement commands. So all the rest of the actions are French. They're probably not too big a deal. I tried to dress ranks here. That's probably what I do here or whatever. I tried to drop into dress ranks with the French units that are remaining. None of them got there, so no recovery for this unit, for example. Too bad. And same thing here, although that artillery hit screws with me. Like, he's pinned in an artillery hit. Do I want to give the village up? Nah, I want to stand there and, you know, be an actual force. I may do the historical thing and start cramming French troops into into the villages. That didn't go well, but it feels like it's the only way to save them from routing, from losing their wing. And that means I'm up to just doing the dress ranks actions, which could still turn into something interesting. There are a couple for the Allies, a couple for the French. Trigger a couple of first fires. This unit was on top of here, triggering this first fire. This unit was here alone, triggering this first fire. Because this has a wing open, well, because this is alone, it can retreat. And because this has a wing open, it can retreat to here. Neither of these could retreat into these hexes, because those are regular cav, and I can't mix them. Probably a little too spaced out there, but that's okay. I did cross the wing boundary there. That's fine. You're allowed to do that in retreat. Except it wasn't damn first fire. As I start dealing with the Montmain, I realize, no, that's cav. So let's get back to this and do some cav attacks here. I think we're talking about, in all cases, it's dragoons doing 1 hex charges, so those aren't going to be particularly advantageous. So let's do that over. Slightly different case where we actually, we do disorder instead of taking first fire. We do disorder the cav at our own dragoons being disordered. But the big bonus is these are in dress ranks. They can just recover from that right away and be in a better position vis-a-vis the charging units here, which can't really fix their situation. They can't keep charging while they're disordered. If they fall into dress ranks, they can recover. But anything else, they're going to be sitting ducks for a possible charge from these. And if they're still in charge when these guys get their next go, if those guys even get into movement orders, they can hit them, I believe. And I know you can do that infantry to infantry, but I'm not absolutely certain cav to cav. The last remaining thing was the Moss and back cav. They were unable to get out of dress rank, so they just popped back a little bit, trying to form up with this mess, but it's truly a mess. It is truly a mess back there. And it's like, I got 2 columns here. That doesn't feel like linear combat to me. Not in the least. And so what do we have as a line? Static line here. Yeah, we pushed the cav back a little bit. Static all across here. Nothing happening here all game. That's just how it's going to be. Got an exposed artillery up here. Allied infantry is just pushing that cav out of the way and causing nothing but problems to the French there. And here, cav versus cav fight, the overwhelming weight of the Allies should be able to overcome what's here. Now again, I have some opportunity, maybe if I'm lucky, to move units, but that's like a 20% chance per turn, and I screwed up and didn't do anything this turn to get into here. I should next turn. That's going to put me into the 140 turn. And yeah, I don't know. I can't get much, like, I don't have an easy way to get stuff into here, but this should be easy to get into because the reserve is empty. So I should be able to push maybe something from the reserve here fairly easily. It gets harder when I start trying to transfer brigades from out of that aren't in the reserve already. But yeah, overall, you know, it looks like this is well on the way to a famous victory. But yeah, I mean, definitely making ground with the Allies there. that will mean that I take a break for a while. Oh, I attempted to nap a little bit, but my eyes closed for an hour or so listening to something, and it just wasn't working. I did break down and turned on all my heaters, so it's just too damn cold. I mean, whatever. One reason that I turn the heat on in this place is to keep things from molding. And, you know, if it's cold for a day or two, it's one thing, but it looks like it's going to be fucking chilly, I don't know, for a while. All right, so here we are at the 140 turn, and let's fire off some artillery and get started. Oh, not a lot. Again, counter battery fire didn't do it. Not quite. But this time I didn't get as good a hit on this thing. And then hit over here. Another French gun disappeared from back here this time. And we are unlimbering some of the Allied guns so that maybe they'll have an effect on play. It just took so long to get these guys forward. And again, I'm not sure what the setup is supposed to be for the Allies. It's not specified in the scenario. So, like in terms of how close they should be. So that artillery, maybe everything should have been right up against the line like it was in Neerwinden. Or maybe not. I don't know. All right. And time to make decisions on the wing commands. Now, I got to start thinking about trying to get things moving forward. I'm not going to waste time on the silly brigade here. That silly brigade, I'm going to just leave it up there. It's in the support line, but it's fighting. But I got to push other things forward so that I can try to delay stuff here. And I got to think about filling in this line as or this wing as well. I don't know if there's much the Allies need to do. After trying to bring these two infantry brigades, each separately, into line here to help fill the gap, neither one succeeded. Great, but I did succeed in getting the Leslie Cav to move forward. That's going to be this one. Try to do something. Again, it's Cav. It's not what I want, but what I want to do is get this infantry up where it can do something. But anyway, we will see what we get. And that'll slide us all the way to the brigade activation, where we look at charges, and we have one French unit under charge and a bunch of Allied units under charge. Well, the silly brigade. So, my favorite unit. These guys came forward, they pushed it back. That's probably just doing the French a favor, but I don't know what else to do with this infantry. It's, you know, it doesn't really need to do anything. The only way, if I had been facing this way, I was facing this way, but I've got to attack infantry if I can, not artillery on its own. So I had to continue down and hit the cow. It doesn't say anything about having to hit artillery that's just placed on its own in requirements. And I don't think I'm allowed to hit it with anything except a charge order. I don't know what's up, you know, with an artillery piece that's on its own. I think I ignore it according to the rules. Maybe, again, I'm forgetting something. I don't know. But anyway, I had stuff in my charge radius and I went for it. But the silly brigade failed to get out of charge. Now, it's in a problem. It can't attack like this. So let's take a look at what charge says if I can't attack. What does that do to me? Infantry and cav not in their disorder must attack with the following priorities. If no units of the same type are in charge, then cav unit must attack any eligible. Yeah, I can't. If no enemy units, I guess. it's treated as if it's under march order, which means I think I turn around and I head back, but I keep my charge order. Now, what's my line? My line is with Broglie and nothing else. Because Ansley's in a transfer, so I'm okay there. Broglie's back here. What's this Bligny? Who's Bligny? Bligny's here, so I can't fall back beyond this line without causing issues there. But this is the line I have to fall back to, because there's the Merid. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, not optimal, but we're falling back and we're hoping we end up dropping out of charge order, right? Activation priority, what happens? Cannot change into a charge order. And I believe there was nothing that required us to fall out of charge order, although I'm not sure. Because that might be the, I may have missed that. That may be the same wing, different lines up back. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about forcing you to change orders. But since I'm considered to be in move, I have to turn around and go back and try to fix that. And that puts me in a better place, I guess. I don't know. This, though, it doesn't feel like I should still be in a charge order after I stop charging. Like, it feels like whatever conditions, when you go here, with the, if no enemy units are in priority hexes, even with a vertex, the unit is treated as a march order. But there's nothing that deals with the whole brigade. So, yeah. Like, there's a restriction here. To attempt to change to a charge order, a brigade must have at least one enemy unit within a charge priority hex. Now, again, this may be something that's handled under the mystery rule. 4.25, the non-compliance. Maybe there's something about if your orders are wrong. But again, once more, I feel like I've got about 12 different things that I'm stuffing into that little bucket. It may cover 2 of them. You know, it's not going to cover all the issues that are missing from the rules as it stands. Last turn I screwed up with Fink. He was under charge orders at the beginning of this turn, so he must have been last turn. He should have been making some sort of attack here, I think. But maybe they ran quite far to get up there. Anyway, the reason that it was an issue is because I had this covered with this and it wasn't clear to me. This is going to be firing here. This is a first fire on both units. So I managed to push part of Mercy out of here. Yep, the variance, right. And what I didn't mention before was these guys. One of them pushed this cav back, one of them pushed this cav back. And then we got attacks here from Bielke, who managed to drive one of these out of here. This was still in a firefight, no issue. This one marched forward and was repulsed. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of allied units under charge, so I'm just kind of going down the line working them because why not? There might be reasons for line to skip around and whatnot, though. Now we have a boatload of complexity. This command here, Durlach, failed to get into the dress ranks that it wanted to get into, so it's still in charge. These guys can't attack. Since they can't attack, they have move orders for now. Well, what can I do? I can move this under here. Okay, that unit's done. This one can come back. Oh, this one can stay. It's in charge. No. So this whole command, because they're blocked off, can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like this. This can come here 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And then this unit still hasn't moved, so it can charge. I think. I couldn't work it out so that both of these could charge. I could have worked it out See, I can't move this without moving this one out from under it first. That's why I moved it as a stack. But basically, the unit in the bottom did the first move, and then the other one came and did the other move. Should this be on the bottom? I don't know, because it's actually behind and getting in front of these guys and everything. So it's like, when you try to picture it, moving it as a stack made more sense. All that action, we ended up bouncing back with a retreat 2. This has an advance 1 if it wants to take it. It's optional for the defender. He's not going to take it because he'd rather keep distance. He's Cav. He gets a bonus if he's charging far enough. Should I have had a bonus? I don't know. I don't care. And so this unit retreated, then got stuck with the can't retreat because it hit this unit and routed through, disordering this unit. Did not rout the whole brigade though, at least. Bugger also forced to remain in charge, but none of the units were within range to charge, so they just get to do move orders, but under charge still. So I shifted things around a little bit. I really wanted to reform and prepare for another attack. Didn't get that. That's creating a very, very narrow corridor here for this last unit, which is in dress ranks right now, so it's not active right now. It will be active much, much later in the turn. So we'll go over to this side. Okay, row disengaged, and this Palant advanced. The top unit on here took a first fire, and then took a 1 AR result, which broke it, and should have caused a router to show up. That did not. That's okay. This is safe because he's a flanking unit. Yeah, we got routers coming. We got routers coming from this direction, routers coming from this direction. This one also broke under first fire. Not great, but whatever. And then this one got hit with a firefight here. As we work our way forward. And motherfucker, these are cav, not infantry. Which means no first fire happened in either case. Let's get these units back. So this came here, it hit Cav, it would force the Cav to retreat, the Cav would take a disorder, but I had to, or the Cav got, no first fire, so the Cav would have to disorder here. This one, and were they in the other order? No, they were like this. No, where did I put it? This one would have hit this. It would not first fire. I was not first firing. The Cav would simply fall back if it can. It's Massenbach, so it falls back to here, no problem. And none of that death happened. Great. These guys moved forward and chased. I'm sorry, these guys just moved forward into place. They're all still under charge orders. This, the Herbaville came forward and chased the Mirad Whittlebach or whatever back a little bit. And you can see we're gaining a lot of ground and we're causing a fucking mess for the eventual infantry line that has to receive us. That leaves none of these inactivated, which means I have done all the charges and I'm morally bankrupt at this point. No, I mean, seriously, my morale is broken from watching this, but that's going to put me on the, in part because I don't have enough sleep, but that's going to put me on the move order or march order or whatever units, starting with one from the French. And fuck. Yeah, no. It's just there's a certain amount of chaos here. You know what this chaos is reminding me of is the cavalry swirls that happened in Musket and Pike. And what the hell, there's a lot of cav happening here, sure. It is kind of reminding me of that without like all the detail of it, just in the sense of like, except that there's nothing really happening. Because it's infantry hitting the cav and just chasing it around. When you actually have cav versus cav, it actually proceeds in a rather orderly fashion. It's this idea of infantry attacking cav that is really, really problematic in terms of like making it very difficult to get a grasp on what the hell is going on. All right, I'm gonna give up for a bit. Maybe be back up, I don't know. It's probably about 4:30 now, and it's kind of pretty out. It's turned out to be a pretty day. It's chilly, but I got my heat on, and you know. But and of course, I did nothing other than play this and try to nap here and there during the daylight hours because that's when I'm used to sleeping. But I started doing the big passing actions, and I've got a bunch of units mainly working my way this way, mainly, not entirely. Flipping units, doing little bits of tiny shifts, attempting to, you know, dress ranks here, but failing. Same over here. The French actually have a number of units in their front line that they want to do stuff with, so it's not like a priority. I don't have to do it before anything else because the Allied units are in charge that are harassing me, and they've already gone. So, and it's a higher priority than flipping things back here, I guess. But you know, just as a matter of I don't want to forget to do it. But while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about this artillery unit here. And I think basically there's something missing in the charge rules. Or there's something missing that allows you to attack cavalry, attack artillery alone under more rules. But at the very least, the charge rules state basically something along the lines, if no units of the same type in the charge priority hexes, and if certain is a cav under a charge order must attack any eligible infantry, infantry must attack cav. But there's absolutely no right nor requirement to attack artillery. I don't think I had to turn away and walk away from the guns. On the other hand, the guns aren't all that effective, so like I'm trying to use common sense here. So it's not that terrible that I did so. And I think what I'll do is I'll leave it up to the player to make a determination as to what they wanted to do. And honestly, in this case, I did want to just march forward. I've got some cav that can mop up that gun. And it's just, you know, the guns create a movement hindrance is all they create if you leave them behind the lines like that. The real iffy thing, though, is, you know, I'd like to put pressure from the other side. And I think I should be allowed to do that. There's no way to get these units around like that. And it feels to me like I should be able to press villages just, you know, that it just happened to be in the wrong zone, wrong wing. And this is something that, as far as I can see, the rules don't allow. But again, remember, I'm going to be flexible with these where needed. On the other hand, I don't feel like I have much chance of winning the fight against Oberglau. So I feel like I did the right thing turning and marching down this way. I think the villages are such strong points that it's perfectly valid to bypass them. These wings are feeling really weird, though. I'm on the Allied side. I got to put the dice up there, otherwise I kind of lose track. It's related to this. As this line falls back, it was way up here. As it falls back, and various other lines that I moved forward, you know, the support, the reserve, have to fall back further. It's exposing what looks like, hey, I should just be able to curve in this way. And I feel like Nagel should be able to take up some sort of defensive position and create a new sort of line coming down here. Now, one of the issues is the victory conditions. What do they mean if you start changing, you know, what wings mean and whatnot? Well, I don't think that's a big problem, because if I extend this wing a couple of hexes or something like that to be able to protect the flank of Oberglau, it doesn't affect what's over here. It's what's over here that matters, you know. So if I make some changes to the map, the little lines on the map, I don't think that has any impact on what the victory conditions really are. If that center has collapsed, it's collapsed, right? And this has the strong point, which means it probably can't collapse. Or it's going to be real hard. Back to personal stuff, you know, I think about my back is really fucked up right now, in the sense, first of all, it kind of hurts, it aches and whatever, and that may be because of how I've been sleeping. It may be because I didn't go dancing. It hurt, it ached in certain ways, but they were different before I went shopping. I don't know that, like, the strain of pulling the cart did harm. It usually does good, but it kind of felt lousy on the way back. But what I mean is, actually, if I reach under my shirt, I can feel like these lines of welts running down it. And what it led me to think about, you know, was like, it was like being whipped. And then I just thought about, wow, you know, this kind of corporal punishment was kind of a standard thing, especially for children. You know, the parent would beat, the father almost always would beat the child with like a switch or something. Not in my era, and for the most part, you know, there is always a few people out there who, but that's, if you hit with any force, I mean, that's just what happens on the back. I mean, I just got hit by a branch, basically. And a fairly hefty branch slapped down and brought a bunch of smaller branches down on my back at the same time. But it, you know, it itches and doesn't feel good. And when I reach over and touch it, I'm like, wow, those are nasty welts back there. I can't fucking see them now. Because of just where they are on my back. I try to look in the mirror and whatnot, and I don't see them, but I can feel them there, like under my fingers. At the time, though, I had absolutely no idea how much damage was being done. Like, when I got home, there was just, you know, I started, it takes about a minute, maybe less than that, to get my cart down the hill from where I damaged myself. And when I got to the door of my house and was going to unlock it, I just looked and there was just like blood running down my arm, a lot of it. And, you know, not like, you know, what I would have expected like I knew it hurt my arm. I didn't really know my back. And, I was just shocked at how much just kept bleeding for a while. And that's not badly damaged, you know, that just got scraped up a little bit and whatever, but just surprising the amount, how red my arm was with blood. And, you know, I would wash it under the water and go and start unloading my cart, and my arm would be drenched in blood again. We're at a place where Wilke is finally attacking. And I come to an interesting question, which is, what's up with the Danube, man? is my line anchored on it or not? I feel like, unlike, say, woods, which the enemy could actually maneuver around, I should count this as an unimpeachable flank, essentially. And I think that's what I'm going to do. But again, not covered in the rules, man. In fact, there's nothing about the Danube at all. I guess if I were legitimate about the rules, like, you could move into this hex and do stuff in it or something. To me, it just feels like it's impassable and should be treated as such. If it weren't there at all, if that was just a blank edge of the map, and I was connected and I was against the edge of the map, I would say, yeah, obviously, you know, something could get around there, right? But the way it is, I think I have to treat it as though it anchors the flank. So I'm not going to give a flanking penalty to this unit. The Wilkie attacks and the results afterwards, with the French doing their last couple of units, finish up the movement order units. Basically what happened, I had 2 units hitting this from here and here. One got the artillery hit. That one got knocked back. We got firefights here and here. This hit the cav, which was on top, but unable to get a dress ranks order. I swapped the order of the cav, making the unit in front a little bit better, because if I left the unit in front that was in front, it would end up routing from an attack by the infantry, which is something I wouldn't want to have happen. That leaves me to a few dress ranks units, and the Allies have to go first. I think they have 1, and the French have a couple, 3 here. Kind of interesting. This guy got from dress ranks into march, which is important because I don't want to charge into the village. And I'm just marching by Oberglau. Now, that would feel really weird. There's nothing really the French can do out of it unless they get into charge. If they're in charge, then they can attack me. But unless I'm in charge, I'm just not coming close enough to the village for musket fire. These hexes are really, really large. I kind of feel like this is something someone else brought up, having to do with the map distortion, that you wouldn't have to do that if you had made this a multi-map game, and made both of them multi-map games. It's kind of a pity they didn't, to tell you the truth. I feel like the scale is causing a fair amount of the kind of, I don't know, sort of distortions, not just on the map, but also in terms of this desire to have like units facing different directions in the same hex and stuff along those lines, that simply a more precise map might have allowed to express that difference a little bit better. I'm not sure, because no matter what, you're going to come down to a point where, yeah, I got a unit in a hex that's like dangling off the edge. Just not convinced that like 1 battalion or whatever couldn't refuse a flank a little bit, like curve a little bit, just to make sure that the enemy doesn't outflank them and overlap them or whatever. I don't know. But yeah. The first Allied brigade break, Durlach's cav got hit by these. This was following and didn't actually charge, but these guys charged, hit it and just scattered it, and that's what you see heading down this way now. And now this doesn't look quite as weak as it did after that countercharge there. It still is. I mean, if you look over here, I got 4 brigades versus 6, 7, 8. Yeah. I found I have a firefight here, which I think was linking to this, which could only happen if it was infantry. I don't know what actually happened there, but that's Cav. What do disordered infantry look like on the back? They don't look disordered because they're not disordered. It's only the Cav that get that weird curvy look. But yeah, to me, this square with like men in it, tiny little men in it, looks the same no matter what it is. I don't know what to do. I guess I do this. And try to recover as best as I can. And hope I remember their Cav next time. It's just so fucking hard for me to distinguish between the infantry and Cav, and I keep running into one and thinking it's the other or whatever. Yeah. I think that's the end of the line. I think that's all the units having been activated. And so it's time for the routers to move and some cleanup and whatnot, and that's about it. Before I get to the rest, most of the routers I've done. And this is what's left. The others dissipated after moving. But here we've got two interesting situations I want to talk about. First of all, there's nothing about routers affecting artillery as far as I can tell. They cause casualties for infantry or flipping Cav to disordered. I've got a causeway here, so it's 1, 2, 3 for the causeway, 4 to here. I think I have to move another one. Now, I'm not allowed to move here, so I think I move there. These guys are going to have to get out of the router's way. That feels odd to me. Like, I don't know. The amount of channels that you have to build feels extreme, but on the other hand, if you didn't have to build them at all, it would feel like, you know, the routers just have no impact, and I think that they should. I like the general concept of this, but again, I think it has to do with there being too big a hex. You know, the scale is just not perfect. Now here, this guy moves. Bridges have no effects as far as I know. He's stopped by the river and has to stand there. And again, I have to leave a channel for him. But it's going to take him his next move to try to swamp across. He'll hit here and then he'll vaporize. So again, not a big deal. It's more a matter of like, if you have way too many troops in the wrong orders or whatever, you're not going to be able to. If you do your orders here in the wrong order, you may get impacted by routers. If you, I don't know, like it's basically routers that show up late in the game turn can disrupt you more easily than ones that show up early in the game turn. Is, I guess, the big deal there. But for the most part, you should be able to get out of their way, even if it involves being in really stupid, non-linear looking formations. But whatever. While I was unflipping, and I'm not done yet, I found a couple of French units over here that I hadn't moved, and more importantly, this Cockton, which I made a roll for, got into dress ranks, and gets into its orders. These guys, they probably weren't doing anything, so. But, yeah, there's just so many, even the Fs are hard for me to discern. When looking at a mass of so many units that need to be flipped and whatnot, I'm just finding so much about the graphical aspects of this game as being not sufficient, like, or I'm not sufficient to cope with them. I think that's the more likely, but to a degree that, like, I can't be the only one who's going to be having problems with dealing with it. All the different facets here. And if that's the case, I don't know. It's just it's a shame when a game's components get in the way of being able to play it properly, right? I mean, it just is, and that's kind of like I've said before on these videos. That's kind of a rule with Compass games. They just have a general failure to get the graphical design down right. Here, a lot of choices were made that get in the way. I'm not sure what could be done with the Fs. Something that jumps out a little bit more, you know, that covers. Yeah, see, the thing is, this is already covering up whether it's infantry or cavalry even more than the problem that's already there. So, like, I don't know what you could do that would be both more apparent to see that it's finished and get in the way less in terms of covering up a very important piece of information on the unit count, on the counters over here. But it would definitely help if what was here to distinguish infantry and cav was a bit clearer. And, you know, I'm nitpicking on these guys because they have the NATO symbols and they're just not, they're not resolving to my eyes as well as they should. I know that in some of these older Zucker games, I had things like, I'm not absolutely sure which ones, right? Like I'm thinking, was it 1809 or was it Struggle of Nations? I think Struggle of Nations I had a pretty easy time telling, but the component units in that, I remember having difficulty seeing in one of the games, seeing and distinguishing the infantry from the cav. But here, it's just a mess to me. Like everything looks the same, and it's a matter of not. It doesn't if I focus on it, okay? If I focus, if I try to figure out what that unit is, I can tell with no problem. It's just that quarter second, half second, whatever, I'm not used to having to take that to identify what a unit is. And you know, it's like trying to figure out, is that a dog or a cat from a distance or something like that when you see a small furry thing. That'll put us to 2 p.m. and where I go down and play Raid, but load this up as well. What do we have going so far? Or what has, it's nice to take a step back and see what the hell's going on. Stasis, more or less stasis. These guys pulled back, but they're just recovering. Well, actually, they're not even recovering. They just pulled back because of the firefight, and now they're going to come back in and try to hit again. And they may actually, you know, with multiple lines of infantry, they may break into the village and take it. But almost nothing happening here except for the danger of being outflanked. The units on the side there, these probably should be trying to form up some sort of line there. Don't know quite how to do that. The two interesting places are the wings where the French cav were in the front. This one is the cleaner of the two. The Allied cav has swept the French cav pretty far back, destroyed a lot of it. You can see that front line's gone. That's hard to replace. Once that last unit dies, everything gets promoted, and that fixes the problem. But yeah, this unit made a kind of brave counterattack and smashed one of the Allied units back, so it doesn't look quite as bad as it did, but this looks like it's close to falling apart. I'm down to just one line remaining if I don't get any replacement units in there. And I tried this turn, not before that. And then here in the center, the Allied infantry has been slowly, well, maybe not that slowly, has been really pushing the French cav back and causing it to collide with the next line of French cav behind it and force them back and force the infantry back, and everything's just sort of stumbling backwards, and you've got units facing this way instead of forward because they had to march because they're not in dress ranks and can't just march backwards. So yeah, we got kind of a mess here, and the real question is, which one of these two wings is where the Allies get their big breakthrough? You know, where they basically demolish the French completely, because the other three wings all have a village in them, and those, to begin with, those are hard to extricate the enemy from. So, you know, you've got a couple of units in the village here. I'm not going to be able to blast through that. What's important? Well, it's important that, like, I have something there so that I can engage them to some extent. And conceptually, at least, as long as I have stuff on this wing that's, like, engaging them to any degree, they're not going to come in and beat up on my cav, because infantry always beats up cav in this game. One way or another. Like, they're not really good at killing cav, but they're good at chasing them around. Like, they just march forward and the cav has to get away. As long as it's formed up lines of infantry. And that's perfectly right. And over here, there's a possibility a lot of this could break, but again, I've got a strong point of village. This Oberglau is the last one, which is basically invulnerable. The forces facing against it aren't engaging it. They're cav. They can't really do much to the village as far as I can discern. So I'm just leaving them there to hold that sector of the line, and any kind of attempt to curve over here would actually be a violation of the rules. I'm willing to allow for that, but I feel like I've got a better chance of causing chaos by pushing the cav forward. And these guys, yeah, I might be able to fudge them a little bit further into a line to help defend this location, but I don't really feel like they can, you know, I don't feel like they can take the job of this entire wing, you know, under any kind of interpretation I have of these rules. And I do need some over here to protect against this wing cutting in as well. So this Oberglau is I feel, in some sort of danger. Now, if you could bust everything behind the village and leave the village behind with all its troops in it, I feel like that should count as busting a wing, but it obviously couldn't, because like, I feel like you can use it as a leverage to hit one of these other wings, but it doesn't make sense to call this wing gone when it's such a thin little slice behind that village. All right, that's it. This is going up. I'm feeling hungry again. I ate too fucking much. But I don't know. So I'll send this up.